Next on Pennsylvania Newsmakers, much of the Keystone State is emerging from the deep freeze of winter, but spring is right around the corner, and that means the return of baseball. We'll talk with the president of the Harrisburg Senators about minor league baseball in the capital city and the state of minor league baseball across Pennsylvania. That's next on Pennsylvania Newsmakers.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host.
Hello, I'm Steve Aaron, this week's guest host on Pennsylvania Newsmakers. The Phillies and Pirates are well underway down in Florida with spring training as temperatures touching the 70s this week in many parts of Pennsylvania. It sure feels good, and it has us all thinking about the return of our national pastime. I'm so pleased to welcome our guest today, the president of the Harrisburg Senators, Kevin Kulp. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Steve. Just hearing you talk about baseball warms my heart.
Same with me. Same with me. There's something about this time of year. You've been in baseball a long time. Do you ever take this time of year for granted?
I try. I recognize that I work in a very, very cool industry. I get to go to a ballpark every day for work. Sometimes just the sheer nature of being there as often as I am leads to that, but it's every day. Try to not take it for granted. Try to really appreciate that we're in a really cool place and we get to impact a lot of lives in this region.
That's fantastic. So you're just a couple of weeks away from opening day up in Erie, which might be a little chillier than it is here.
Right.
But just tell me about the state of the Senators. I understand that the team recently went through a sale.
We did.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, we were purchased by Diamond Baseball Holdings. They are a company that formed out of COVID, and they recognized that, with Major League Baseball taking over the governance of minor league baseball, that it was an opportunity for them to come in and really scale the businesses, be able to acquire. They're acquiring a lot of teams. It's providing us a lot of resources that we've never had before, and a corporate structure for that matter. It's not just us. Our 23 merry men in the stadium. It's a whole corporate structure that's there to help us. It's been a really good transition. It's good for the long-term health and viability of baseball in Harrisburg.
How about the stadium itself, FNB Field? Anything new that people can expect to see this year? Anything that you've been focused on to get the place ready for our fans?
I tell you, I get asked that question every year, is what's new at the ballpark? And we always try to make subtle changes and try to refresh, but this year is extraordinary. We are going through a major renovation at the ballpark. Fans are going to see lots of chaos and construction activity all year long. We're building a new clubhouse for the Senators down the first base line in an effort to give the Washington Nationals a better environment for player development. New lights, new LED lights in the ballpark, new protective netting that's going to go from all the seats inside the foul pole will be covered by protective netting. That's a Major League Baseball standard. So lots happening, lots new and different, but the same family-friendly environment that everybody hopefully comes to expect.
So you've been the longtime AA affiliate of the Washington Nationals.
Yep.
So talk about on the field for your team. How you looking? How's the outlook of the players this year?
The Nationals have really had a good couple of years developing young talent, and sometimes the big league level, you try to remain competitive all the while growing and drafting and hopefully hitting on some of those prospects that we get the opportunity to see in Harrisburg. And over the last couple of years, we've seen some extraordinary ones. And I do believe they're going to be in the big leagues playing every day now, like guys like James Wood and Dylan Cruz in the outfield, guys who were just drafted a couple of years ago are going to be mainstays in that lineup. And, we had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with those guys. And there's still a couple of folks, there's always going to be guys that surprise you that come out of nowhere. But there are a couple of big prospects we expect to be in Harrisburg this year.
We've been so fortunate over the years to see players like Bryce Harper and Trey Turner and Juan Soto, come through. They don't often stay very long because they're so talented.
Right.
But it is a thrill, and that's one of the great things about minor league baseball is you get to see these future stars come through your hometown.
Yep.
Pennsylvania has, I think, about 11 minor league baseball teams plus the Little League World Series in Williamsport. What would you say is the state of minor league baseball across Pennsylvania right now?
I tell you what, there's so many communities that are investing in their minor league teams. It's really important that minor league teams remain the fabric of their communities, stay as local as they can, all the while trying to maintain the presence of affordable family entertainment, and that there's still affordable opportunities in your area, in your town, and that's what minor league baseball. That's kind of the secret sauce of minor league baseball, is that locality, being local. And like you said, there's so many teams around Pennsylvania, and the industry's thriving. I mean, there's so much investment in facilities and in the infrastructure to maintain that relationship with Major League Baseball. I think we're in a really great space for the industry.
Gotta love talking baseball in the middle of March. The season's getting close. We have more with Kevin coming up. Stay tuned. We'll be back after this.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
And we're continuing our conversation about minor league baseball in Pennsylvania with the president of the Harrisburg Senators, Kevin Kulp. Kevin, minor league baseball has really been at the forefront of helping the commissioner of baseball, Rob Manfred, implement many of the changes that we've all benefited from as viewers and attendees of games, most notably the pitch clock, also the shift. So many of these reforms that have started at minor league baseball. Can you tell us about the role minor league baseball has played, and what's been your thought about how it's been working?
I think it's incredible that the commissioner has the foresight to think about testing these things at the minor league level. It doesn't sound that complicated, but it hadn't been done. And to be an incubator for innovation and to transform our game, because quite frankly, the pitch clock and the shift rule are transforming the game, making it a much better product for the younger viewer, and that's so important to the health of baseball, obviously. So it is. It's been fun, and I will tell you, at the beginning of it was a little. It seemed like, wow, are these things ever really going to, are we really testing something that's ever going to happen, or are we just testing them for the sake of testing them? Either one was kind of unique and different, but to see it actually being implemented so soon after we do it one year and then the big leagues are doing it the next year is amazing. And I love what he's done, because I think every one of those innovations that have happened in Major League Baseball have been for the betterment of the game. Does
MLB come into your ballpark to help you with that, like the installation of the clocks and just helping you with the technology?
They do. They do. Obviously, they install all the technology. We have training resources and trainings to make sure we know how to work with the umpires and to all the different nuances that might happen during a game, especially with the pitch clock, because there's so many times when it might be turned off, or there's longer time for a throw over to first base, et cetera. Different things happen, have different protocols. But you get the hang of that pretty quickly, because muscle memory after a few games. Those guys who have to do that pitch clock up in the control room, I promise you, are paying as much attention to that game as the umpire is.
How about the players? How's the transition been for them, right? They're the first ones to experience this. Mm-hmm. And then if they get called up, obviously, maybe they're at an advantage because they've had a chance to get used to it. But how have the players adjusted to all these changes?
Our players at the AA level are young guys that are very adaptable. Whatever the rules are, that will become their new normal fairly quickly. And then when they get to the big leagues, it's not a transition at all to be under those kind of pitch clock rules. I think it's harder for the guys who are more established, that maybe are already in the big leagues, who are used to doing it a certain way for so long, having to adapt. It's nothing for these minor league guys. You rarely see infractions because they just do it. They know that these are the rules. They're used to playing faster. At their youth or their high school levels or college levels, all the way up through the pros. So it hasn't been that big of a transition for them, I don't think.
How about the transition for the fan? You were sharing with me that your game time, because of the pitch clock, is about 25 minutes shorter. Mm-hmm. So that's less time to get food and a drink, perhaps. But what's your research telling you about how the fans have had to adjust in the ballpark to a shorter game?
There's two trains of thought. One is, people are at the ballpark, they're there for a good time. They don't really pay that much attention to how fast the action is going. But I will tell you, and that is true to some extent, I don't think people are as, I think the product on television is much more benefited from the pitch clock rules than in park. But the action happens so much quicker and more crisper with these pitch clock rules when you're in stadium. And we haven't seen a decline in the amount of activities that fans have, whether it be purchasing hot dogs or beers or whatever they're doing in the ballpark. It just goes a little quicker. And I think it makes it a more tolerable experience for everybody in the whole. You have young children, you come out to the ballpark, now you know it's going to be, 6:30 game, you might be home by 9:15. And you might live 15 minutes away. So that whole thing becomes a much more manageable family environment.
That's great. So we have about 30 seconds left. What are your hopes for the season as you look ahead? What are you thinking in the next couple weeks as you get ready?
I'm really excited about what these changes we're making to the ballpark are going to do. I got a lot of kids on my staff who are inheriting bigger roles, watching them grow. There's nothing like opening those gates on opening day and knowing that all the work you've done since that last out in September are starting to pay off with actually being able to see the looks on people's faces when they come in the ballpark. That is the fun time for us, being able to make those memories for people here in this region. And that's what the magic of minor league baseball is across all the teams in Pennsylvania. We're all doing the same thing. We're all fighting the good fight, trying to provide affordable family entertainment in our regions.
Awesome. Kevin, thanks so much. I know I'm fired up for baseball.
Fired up.
Let's go. Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be back next on Newsmakers.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by CrossState Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We're going to transition from spring training to spring cleaning of your finances. And really pleased to be joined by two outstanding guests. Pat Conway is the president and CEO of the CrossState Credit Union Association, and also pleased to be joined by Ron Celaschi, their president and CEO of Patriot FCU.
Yes, sir.
Good to have you both here.
Good to be here, Steve.
Hope that baseball conversation got you fired up for the spring.
Absolutely.
Steve, thank you.
So, Pat, I want to start with you because we're talking about, I think a lot of us think about spring cleaning and getting rid of the clutter and junk in our homes, but you're here to talk about kind of the spring cleaning of your finances. Tell us about that. Why is that important for us to be thinking about?
Well, exactly, Steve. The springtime is a good time. A lot of us clean our houses and our homes during the spring season. Our homes can collect clutter and stuff over time, and you feel like you're maybe in a better control position and if you clean your house in the springtime. And so we like to advise consumers and credit union members across the Commonwealth that springtime's a good time for spring cleaning to get your financial house in order. So it's a good time. Not that you should just do it once a year, but it's an appropriate time, I think, to think about getting your financial house in order.
That's outstanding. Ron, I know you guys have come up with a few tips and a few specific things that we can talk about. You talk about dusting off your budget and perhaps, thinking about that way. What are some things people should be thinking about?
I think first and foremost, Steve, we want to talk about budget as more of an art than even a science. It can certainly be a stressful and anxious time to think about your budget, about your income, and about your expenses. And we encourage people to take a look at that, not just annually, but on an ongoing basis, because over the course of time, income changes, right? It goes up, but things don't cost any less. So that makes it very challenging to take a look at, hey, what am I spending? What kind of income are we bringing into the home, and how can we budget that and then even save a little for either that rainy day or some kind of event that might be coming up?
Very good. Pat, there's also an opportunity to freshen up our financial documents and our passwords, right? Those are other things that we need to be thinking about as well.
Sure, it is. A lot of us have bank accounts or insurance policies and things in, filing cabinets or desk drawers at your home office. We encourage people to move those payments and filings online electronically. It sometimes helps you keep those things in order. But, whether it's paper or electronic filing, keep those things in order and shred the older documents and get them out of your way. And it just gives you a sense of, again, I think more of a sense of control over your home financial situation.
That makes sense. I think all of us are obviously concerned about our credit and making sure we're keeping our credit scores healthy and as high as they can be. So we talk about, with spring cleaning, tidying up our credit. How do we do that? What should we be thinking about?
Well, we should first be thinking about making things simple. Many consumers have several different credit cards. You may have had credit cards that were valuable to you at a different life stage, or we may have opened a card to finance appliances or furniture or do a balance transfer at 0%, Steve, and those periods have expired and you no longer use the card. So does it bring any value to your wallet anymore? And then, of course, our travel habits change. A lot of people like to take advantage of airline miles perks or cash back rewards. So it really depends on your stage of life, but the best thing to do is really focus on keeping maybe 2 or 3 cards in your wallet that are relevant and that you might use.
Is that one of those areas that does drive up credit scores? If you have too many cards open, too many things, is that something that the credit folks are looking at?
The credit folks are looking primarily at utilization. So the card amounts and limits don't matter as much as how much is being utilized. So if you're maxing out or getting close to, that's going to adversely affect your score. So if you have a bunch of open credit lines with 0 balances, that will positively affect your score.
All right, let's pause there for 1 minute. We'll be back to talk more about spring cleaning of your finances when we return.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania American Water. We keep life flowing across the Keystone State.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We're going to continue our conversation about spring cleaning for our finances. So, Pat, let's continue with you. You talk about deep cleaning our accounts. What's that all about? Does people sometimes have accounts they might forget are still open?
Yeah, actually, that's very common, Steve. And so, credit unions, community banks, other financial institutions will advise their members or customers, don't forget about this account that's been dormant. A lot of times folks will forget. And so, we encourage people just to monitor their accounts, consolidate them where it makes sense. If a consumer may have taken a new job, for example, you can roll over your 401k to the new program. A lot of folks take some time to do that. So I think there's some spring cleaning that you can do when it comes to accounts and tools like retirement accounts as well.
Ron, does the same hold true for some subscriptions that you might have as well?
I think so. Most people that go to subscription services, whether they be streaming, gym memberships, mobile apps, food subscriptions, or even recurring Amazon purchases, it's a set it and forget it, right? It comes automatically out of their accounts every month, and we really don't pay attention to it. So this is a really good opportunity to do that deep spring cleaning into those subscriptions and make sure they're still bringing value to the general consumer.
There's even apps now to help you figure out which apps you don't use anymore, right? There's
Absolutely.
apps for apps.
Apps for apps.
But I think that is very common. So many of us, it's like a one-time thing to access something, and then we forget. And there might be a monthly, annual, recurring fee that's popping up, and it's draining our account.
And I think that $2.99 a month, you don't really notice it, right? But over the course of a year, it's $36, $38, and that money could be better saved or better well spent.
Of course, the key is remembering the password that you entered to get into that account.
I'm guilty of having them written down, Steve, so I'll put my hand up there.
I think we all do.
Right.
I think we all do.
There's apps
for that too, right?
For sure.
We need to use more biometrics and less passwords.
Yes,
right?
sir.
That helps. Pat, talk about decluttering our debt. What are some things we should keep in mind there?
Well, it's a good idea to understand your debt, pay it off when you can, consolidate it when possible. And again, I think we're all busy, and now more so than ever. People, the household, small businesses, and sometimes that takes a backseat. Just keeping an eye on your financial house, keeping things in order. So pay off debt when you can, consolidate it. If you do have some extra cash, for example, your tax return in the spring, consider using that to help you pay down debt. Start a college fund. Use those extra dollars wisely when you're looking at your spring financial house cleaning that time of year.
So you mentioned the tax return, right? We're in that season now that people are going to be getting, hopefully, some money back in their tax return. And I think some of us instinctively are excited. It's like found money, and some people decide, let's go buy something or use it for something like that. But you talk about not letting your tax return give you spring fever.
Yeah, I think, Steve, a lot of people want to use that tax return to go on vacation or put that new deck on the house, which are certainly things they should consider. But paying off debt is extremely important. A lot of times when we're looking at paying off debt, the credit card bill or bills exceeds your tax refund. So in that instance, what we recommend is the snowball method. Pay off that lowest balance that you have and get it off the books, so to speak, off the budget books. And that gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of accomplishment as well. Hey, I can do this. I've got that first one done. Also starting or contributing to a retirement plan. Whether you're in an IRA or a 401k, there's some opportunity there to put the tax refund to work. Pat mentioned starting a college fund. I think as parents, if your children are going to college, your goal is to get them out of there without debt, which isn't easy these days. So that's somewhere where that tax refund could go. But maybe most importantly is that what we used to call the rainy day, and I think it's more of a stormy day these days, right? Unexpected things happen. Appliances break. We need new tires. In my case, brakes and rotors yesterday. So these things come up, and the general rule of thumb is to have about 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved on the side. Now that's difficult in today's environment. Maybe a couple years ago, 6 months was pretty easy. That's probably 3 months savings now with inflation and the cost of everything. So those are some things I think we can do to help people think about what do we do with that tax refund.
Got it. Pat, just in a few seconds, because we only have a short time left. This takes discipline, though, right? We all have to be disciplined in making these decisions.
It really does. And I think it starts with remembering to tune in to your financial house like you do your own home in the springtime.
That's great. Well, thank you both so much for being here. These are important tips for all of us to think about. And we don't typically think about our finances maybe in the spring. We think about cleaning our house, but I think these are great tips to help people get started. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Steve.
And thank all of you for being with us at Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We look forward to seeing you next time.